Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome Libby Miles. As we've heard, she works for Upton Mill Care Home. Good morning, Libby. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
So tell me, this is a bit of a strange problem for a care home because I'm sure everybody thinks they know the answer, but what problem is it that you actually solve for people and I guess their families?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. So basically, I am here to support people almost in their darkest moments. So they are supporting their loved ones at home and have got to the point where they are now making the phone call that they least want to make. They're making that contact because they cannot cope any longer. And I'm there to be able to basically to support people in finding out what is the right solution for them in delivering care for their loved ones. And that could be physically with me here in my home, or it could be finding those local resources to just give them that little bit of break to continue in living and how they want to live. So yeah, I'm really trying to put families back together, I suppose, in a way, at a time when they really don't want to have to do that.
And you mentioned in your introduction about the fact that you offer different sorts of services. Can you tell us a little bit about, what the various options are for people talking to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we in this home we are under the umbrella of a care home. So we are a nursing home and a residential home combined. Historically, there will have been separate homes. So there would have been a nursing home run by nurses and residential homes run by carers. So we encompass all of that. So it does mean that we have quite a wide range of care needs within our building. We are a large building with 64 beds.
Oh, okay.
So we start off with low level care. So people who maybe just need a little bit of help with washing and dressing. Some people who make a lifestyle choice to join us, that they just don't want to cook anymore. And that's fine. Let us do the cooking and the washing up. Not a problem. And then as people's needs change, we adapt how we deliver care to them through to full end-of-life care, which we can also offer here, as well as offering an environment that can support those people who are living with a dementia diagnosis as well, with keeping them safe and engaged, but also allowing them to live and make choices and just adapt in how they do that, so they still have fulfilling lives, and lives that are enriched with the different activities and things that we're able to offer here.
I think you mentioned respite care as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, my role here is to bring new residents into the home, but it's also I'm here to enable people to live how they want to live. And sometimes if someone wants to live at home and it's safe to live at home with their loved ones, then why shouldn't they be able to do that? And the use of respite care is one way of being able to do that, so that the carers, the close family members who are doing the care day to day, can just have that 2-week, 3-week break so that they can just gather themselves and get their strength back up to continue with how they want to live their lives. And it's really important that people know that there are options and choices out there, and it's all about looking at what's safe, and what people actually want.
Fantastic. So in terms of the sector, is it a very competitive marketplace? Do you have to, do you need to get out there a lot, or is it very much people coming to you?
No, it is a very competitive sector, and actually this kind of blindsided me. I joined the industry 11 years ago, and I just saw an advert for a salesperson for a care home, and I thought, well, why does a care home need a salesperson? Surely you either need it or you don't. So I actually rang the company and said, look, I am interested, but I can't quite envisage what that actually is. And they recommended that I just went and mystery shopped one of their homes. And then once I started that ball rolling, you can see that there is there is a sales process, but also there's plenty of options out there for people. So there are homes like mine, which is a purpose-built home. So it offers a certain feel. We are a bespoke kind of home as well. So we've got a high-end finish within the home. Our ratios for our residents to staff is higher than what's recommended. But then there are also conversions that have happened for those people who maybe like the history and maybe smaller environments, because 64 is a large community. We're broken up into little pockets, but it's still a large community. Some people would prefer to be in one of those smaller homes. So there are plenty of options out there, and there are actually plenty of people to go round. But it means that as a care industry, not just care homes, but also domiciliary care and retirement properties, we all need to work together to make sure that people are aware of what options are available to them, to then be able to make the choice as to what's going to work for them.
So you mentioned the sales process. So just what's a quick run through of your sales process?
Yeah, absolutely. So so I am meeting somebody at their lowest point in their lives. So it's a very soft sales process, and it's all about guiding people through what they need to go through in order to get to the point where they can make an informed decision. So I do handhold a lot through that process, and I also need to allow, where it's possible, because sometimes there isn't, but where possible, people to have time to digest what it is that they're actually going through, and making sure that where they need that expert advice, so for example with financial advice, making sure that that the choices that they're making are legally, because you need to make sure that if you're making decisions on behalf of somebody, that you've got power of attorneys, for example, but also financially is what you're looking for sustainable long term. So it's just slowly taking people through that process through to points of admission, when at that point I hand over then to the care team within the building here.
This might be a slightly inappropriate question, but we always think about a sales process having this doesn't sound right, having a sales funnel.
Yeah.
So for you, what's the top of the funnel? You know, where do the leads? I mean, it sounds great, but where do the leads come from?
Absolutely. There is a sales funnel, and that is partially why I come out and network, because the more people that know about my home, the more people will refer into me, just because of word of mouth. Word of mouth is our biggest source of inquiry into our homes. It's people who've experienced our service or people who have met me, because ultimately this is a very emotional choice, and people like to go to people who have been recommended to them, even more so in this circumstance. So it is all about me being visual in the local area, and then also reputation as well, which when we're opening a home is maybe a little more difficult, because you're opening a building with a brand new team. But we're now 2.5 years down the line, so we do have a local reputation. We've got a good CQC rating with one of the Chloes that we're inspected on as outstanding. So that's really good for a new build. So it's just all about continuing building that reputation, but also embedding ourselves in the local community. So seeing where there are community projects that we can support in, just because the last thing we want is for people to move in with us and for them to think, well, that's it now, I've moved into a care home, let's just wait for the inevitable, when actually we want people to come here and live with us.
Yeah. So what's the CQC?
So the CQC is the Care Quality Commission. So they are our regulator, and they go out and visit all care providers, so not just care homes, but it could be doctors, surgeries, hospitals, and they are there to ensure standards, and the inspections that they do for care homes are unannounced, so they do just rock up, and we provide the evidence. They speak to our residents, the staff, and also some of the families as well, that we support, and they're normally with us for a couple of days, and then we're given a report afterwards.
Fantastic. So we haven't mentioned it, so it is a relatively competitive market. So it's Upton Mill, and it's the group that you're in, different from the other choices in the area.
Okay, so we're classed as a medium care group. We're actually an award-winning medium care group. We've just won the award for medium-sized care companies to work for. We're a care company that's very much all about the individuals that we're looking after, but also listening to the staff and the people that work for the company as well. Our homes are all purpose-built, so we don't work with any kind of acquisitions or anything like that. So they are designed by our architects, and we work with a company called Care Home Interiors, who work with us on our interior design. And the ethos around Care Home Interiors is basically, you walk into our homes, you don't think it's a care home. That's not the feel that you have. You have the feel of of either a homely setting or a high-end hotel. That's the kind of feel that we've gone for. So you'll see fabrics that you won't expect to see in a care home. You see carpets on the floor. You see your proper quality stuff. And then on top of that, you've got the care that we provide with regards to the higher staff to resident ratios, and then the leisure and wellness team and the chefs as well. So we have care home chefs rather than care home cooks. And we're very competitive here as well. So we have chefs competitions where we compete against each other in challenges set by Michelin star chefs. As well as garden competitions as well. So it's a great place to be. It's a great place to work. It's a great place to live.
So you mentioned that you saw a job for a sales manager and thought about it. So was there anything that particularly attracted you to the care sector, or was it more about the fact it was a good sales manager job?
Well, I've always wanted to help people. In all of my career up to that point, I've wanted to be there to support others, and in the roles that I've been in, things started to change where I felt that my wings were being clipped a little bit in being able to help people. I'm a people pleaser, so actually going into the care industry, admittedly the big drive was that it was within walking distance of my house at that point. But as soon as I started to see, in particular with my first home, how I truly was able to help people in their darkest time and give them a solution, and seeing families go from carer and cared for back to husband and wife, or mother and child, or father and child, it's just beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful, and is why I'm still here 11 years later.
Yeah, precisely. So one final question, I think we might then have, I think there's a couple of questions in the chat as well. So what advice would you give to people that are starting to think about looking at care for either themselves or family members? Where should they sort of start?
Well, ideally, you want to be looking when you don't need it, purely for the fact that you can see things then objectively. In particular, if you're looking into things like power of attorneys, so planning is key. So if you're setting up power of attorneys so that people can act on your behalf, why would you not go and have a look at a couple of care homes so you can tell your attorneys, I like this kind of home. Particularly if there's a home you really like yourself, then you can say, if I need to go into a care home, this is where I'd like to go. So it's trying to plan as much as possible. But also looking around as well. If you've got that opportunity, view a few homes and also go with your gut, because when you walk through a door, the feelings that you get when you walk through that door are genuinely right.
Yeah, like all these things. So I think, Pete, we got a couple of time for a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
You're on mute. His lips are moving, but there is no.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Pick them up.
John, I think you had a question you wanted to ask Libby.
Yes, Libby, if it's your department, hospitality and care facilities recruitment is a nightmare at the moment nationally. Do you have any responsibility in that, or do you have any anecdotal fishing ponds that your group use to get quality staff?
So we make sure that we pay well, and we look after the staff. So obviously we've just been through quite a difficult time with regards to COVID. I would say that the way in which the pandemic hit us as an industry was difficult, but actually as a company ourselves, when Brexit started to come onto the horizon, we did try and pre-plan with regards to PPE, because there was rumours that there might be issues with the stock levels. And prior to the pandemic, we'd only really used PPE before with things like neurovirus and stuff like that, so not very often. And so it meant that once the pandemic hit, we were able to protect our staff straight away, with the senior team just jumping in their cars and bringing PPE. So we were looking after our staff the whole time. So we have a reputation for doing that. We also look to recruit locally in each of our homes as well. So try and recruit as local as possible and put things back in the local community, really.
Thanks, Libby. Have we got any other questions from the floor before I hand back to Pete? Well, thank you for that, Libby. It's a really interesting thing when you start applying the business principles to something like the care home sector. So always intrigued to see how that works.
I think the thing of looking for it when you don't need to, what a little gem that's so obvious that we all ignore.
Yeah.
And as Libby said, I would highly recommend that for anybody, if you haven't done your power of attorney, go and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what might be around the corner. Some of you may know a guy called Adrian Bressington, who was used to do a lot of networking locally. And when he did networking, one of his things was, you are a knock on the head from slurping your soup. Pete, back to you.
Well, before you come back to me, Anna's got her hand up. So I'm thinking Anna might have a question there. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you. I thank you for introducing us to the homes, Libby. It was very interesting. And I was wondering, where are they located? Are they all over England?
So
anywhere specific?
Yeah, we're kind of the M4 corridor. So I'm in Tetbury in Gloucestershire, and we go across to Tunbridge and Maidstone kind of width ways. And then we have 3 homes up north in the Buxton kind of area. So and our new homes are opening in Cambridge and Burford in Gloucestershire as well. So we're growing.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You do pick some nice areas.
We do.
Fantastic. Good scenic English countryside. Good. Okay. So so thanks for that, Libby. Really interesting. Always interesting to hear a little bit about how some of these businesses actually work on the surface. We're very aware when we come to these meetings that we go around the room, we introduce ourselves, and of course we're here networking, we're here to meet people, and we're here to put our best foot forward and tell everybody how great our business is, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But it's also really important every now and again to just pause and take a bit of time and get under the skin of not just how great the business is, but why does it exist? What was the idea in the first place? How does it work? Where is it at? And it just gives a bit of a stronger depth to it, and helps build the relationships with those involved. So that's why we do it, and that's great. And thank you, Libby. And a little bit, it's great to hear about that care sector and the things that, you know, we're all getting older. We're all getting older, and I think, however near to that or not we are, it's something that will come along, and it's just something that you need to think about and understand the cause for it a bit. So our second interview this morning is, we do with this second Who's in the Room, we try and focus on some of the people who've been with us for a while, and actually we may get to know the face really well, but you then start taking the face a little bit for granted because you know who they are and what they do and what your perception is. But we like to just have a little bit of a longer dwell on that business. And our own Louise Taylor, who put so much into this event and actually organised a lot of these things for us, put her hand up and said, well, what about me? What about being a virtual assistant? And we thought, well, how obvious and what a good idea that is. So Louise, just before we get in under the skin of it, just reintroduce yourself a little bit and just talk to us about the business of being a virtual assistant and what that is and what the business does and how it came to be and all those sorts of things. And then we'll go into a few specific questions. Up to you.
Okay, so my history is I used to manage a law firm in Cheltenham, and after 11 long years of doing that, I decided to set up my own business. And I was like, what can I do? You know, what am I good at? What do I have skills at? So I kind of looked and thought, well, you know, I'm obviously good at organising, I'm good at administration, I'm good at helping people, I'm good at, you know, managing, I manage lawyers. So surely somewhere there's businesses who want this help on an ad hoc basis. So never really ventured or heard about virtual assistants before, so did some research, and then I came up with this, you know, the idea of running a virtual assistant business. But I also wanted to, because you know, there's a lot of businesses around here, to offer to actually go into clients as well, and not just virtually. You know, so slightly different. So it was weird when I set up. I was like, well, I'm a virtual assistant, but I also can go on site, and I actually do go on site to my clients if they're local. So the idea of virtual assistant is that you know, we help small businesses that, you know, few employees. They don't want to deal with their paperwork. They're no good at admin. They're no good at invoicing. They're behind with their invoicing. Happens quite a lot. You know, they need updates on the website. They need newsletters sent out. And all those exciting things. So basically, you know, diary management, inbox management, and that is what virtual assistants do. I think if anyone's come across any, you'll know some have niche areas. So some will specialize in social media, some will specialize in CRMs, for instance. But my approach was I want to be able to, because I've got all this wide range of skills and experience, is to sort of offer a one-stop shop, really, that I can sort of help businesses with not just one thing, but quite a few things. So that was the idea.
Brilliant. So you and I first met, I can't even put a timeline on it, but it was well ahead of the pandemic, a couple of years ahead of the pandemic, in actually, ironically, a networking meeting where we all sat around a breakfast table just outside Bristol, which was a bit bizarre. We were just starting the business up, and we said, well, so I said, oh, where are you located? And you end up being located about a mile down the road from where I live in Cheltenham. So it's like, so we have to come to Bristol to meet up. Isn't that wonderful? But that was in person, and that was before the world sort of got us around the chops with the pandemic. Now, being a virtual assistant was very much virtual assistants were growing around then, and that was what you were doing anyway. And we'd all, already know a few other virtual assistants as well, because there's a principle there that says, if I'm a small business or I just need a little bit extra help, you don't necessarily need that person to be staffing the business, because so much of what we do is online. But when we came to the pandemic, of course, that whole business of virtual assistant took a whole new dynamic on. So just before we go into the other questions that we'll talk a bit about it, you started that business and then went straight into a pandemic, which possibly was tailor-made, forgive the pun, for what you were doing as a virtual assistant. How did that period work for you?
Well, it's quite weird, because the clients I had, my business was sort of started getting going, and then, but the clients I had, I wasn't actually working virtually for, and they were affected by the pandemic. So it wasn't a great start. The pandemic wasn't, and the first client I got within the summer of the pandemic actually wanted me in person. So she was a building surveyor, and I still work for her. Gone from sort of a couple of hours a week now to sort of almost a day a week. And then, I don't know, it just stemmed from there, really. But obviously the whole COVID thing and working from home has allowed people to see that, you know, we don't have to be in the office, we don't have to have the person next to us. And so it's, I think, and I've certainly noticed a lot more virtual assistants appearing certainly over the last year than before. And I think it's just opened up so much more opportunity for people to accept that you don't need to be sitting in the same desk. So it's certainly, I think there's certain people who would not have thought about hiring a virtual assistant, but now do, because of the pandemic and what's happened. You know, they wouldn't have thought about it for one moment before because they're so used to having someone there. But this has changed a lot over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, the pandemic was a very interesting period. Interesting, that's a word, isn't it? But for many people, I take my hat off a little bit to anyone who started a business either just before or during a pandemic and still is here. And certainly it hit many of us in many different ways. My wife's a teacher, and everyone else came home and was locked in at home, and she was actually a key worker, and she lost an entire set of Easter holidays then because they were all in all the time looking after kids for key workers. And then my children are in, you know, were in higher education and further education, and they came home, and it was just all very chaotic. And I always worked from home, so I was used to being home, and then suddenly everyone was here all the time. So it was a really interesting dynamic time for running a business, and even within what we do with the business shows, obviously we were going into a live on the ground business show when all that kicked off, and it just all that ground to a halt but turned into an online show, which is where Business Insights came from. So a really interesting time for any business starting during the pandemic. But virtual assistants did pre-exist, they do exist now, and it's changed the game a little bit. So what makes you and Taylormade Business Services different? What's your USP when it comes to selling yourself as a virtual assistant?
I think one, that the fact that I actually do go into offices does help. You know, I think I have met all of my clients, you know, and I do got a client in Cardiff. I go down there every so often. We've got a client in Luton. I've been down there. So it's good because actually go and see the office and go and see how it all works, and also because I think because of my clients are quite are sort of one-man businesses, or they're them, there's just them or a couple of directors, they help. I find that I help them because they're so, sometimes they just want to offload and talk to someone, and they'll ask my opinion, you know, and because of having managed a law firm for 10 years, we've sort of got a lot of experience and knowledge, and they sort of, you know, they feel they can talk to me and they can offload and they ask my advice and I can help. And just having someone to sound off to really helps, because they're just on their own, or they're just sort of, you know, there's just a few, they're managing staff and they've got no one to talk to. So I do find that makes a lot of difference, really.
And your own background is in the legal sector, not as a lawyer, but as a practice manager. Do you see that legal sector coming and employing you, or what sort of businesses do you find come to your door and say, actually, we need to do that?
I do work for some law firms still, yes, which is great because it keeps my hand in. And also, I mean, I found this useful wherever I go. I know how to read legal documents, and it's amazing how useful that is for whatever, you know, contracts, leases, well, all of those things. And if someone doesn't want to pay my client, then I know how the court processes work. So that's been invaluable, learned experience that I can help my clients. But as I say, building surveyor, builder, physiotherapist, in the healthcare, hypnotherapist, physiotherapist, a wide range of businesses. Some are just one-man bands, and then the largest has about 14 employees. So there's nothing, and everyone has different demands. You know, one client had just updated the database. It can be one-off jobs, like this, as I say, this client just spent like 3 months updating their database for them. And then the other ones are like sending invoices out, keeping an eye on their invoices, which is like a monthly thing. My largest client, as I say, I work as, I suppose as a remote office manager. So I help them with their policies, procedures, HR, accounts, and work as a middleman between them, the directors and the employees, and the directors and accountants and service providers. So if I was in an office, I would be their office manager. So but it's amazing what you can do when you work remotely.
So that's interesting because, you know, you've effectively been an office manager in many respects, just a remote office manager, and you provide a lot of different services. So when it comes to providing services, even telling people what the services are, but what that then turns into, or all used to a job turning into something else once you actually get involved in it. What sort of businesses, and why should a business hire a VA, and what kind of work do you end up offering them when you get there?
I think like everything, we've all got our skills, we've all got our best bits and our worst bits, and if someone is spending 5 hours a week on raising their invoices or chasing clients for information or any of those admin tasks that they hate, or when they could be spending their time earning money and doing what they do best, and do, you know, sort of keeping their business afloat and bringing the money in, then I think, you know, they should be hiring a virtual assistant, because while, you know, we can generally, I mean, I know I can sort of, if someone is taking a business owner 5 hours to do something, I can probably do it in an hour, because that's what I'm good at. You know, I'm good at IT. It's just, you know, that's my history. That's what happens. So that frees up the time for the business owner to then go and focus on their business and get the money in and keep the profits going and grow their business. So it just allows them a bit, and it allows them a headspace, you know, so they can actually think about their business. And
so it's about flexibility.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, outsourcing, I mean, Jill will back me up on, you know, she's a big fan of outsourcing. You know, why spend all that time yourself doing something when you can outsource it to someone that costs you less than you charge out per hour. So
how have your clients come across you? Obviously, you do a fair bit of networking. You're out and about. We met live in person on the ground. We've talked about the pandemic when a lot of things went online. Do you do external traditional marketing, or do you do for networking? How do your clients actually find you?
I don't do much marketing at all, really. I've found throughout the years that the best way for me to get work is networking. I've either got clients through meeting them, or they've, you know, met someone through someone. So it's and just I don't do that much networking now, because I think, but I do like to do it because I think it's good that you keep your name out there, you know. And I want to think that if someone needs a VA, the first person they'll think of is like, oh, Louise. You know, I need an admin job doing. I know, Louise. So I do try and keep it up with the networking. And because when you're working more or less on your own, it's great to go out and network and see people, and you learn so much, and then, you know, learn so much from other businesses. So,
and I guess also one of the great things about the virtual side of being a VA is, of course, the geographical boundaries go away. And I was just musing as you were talking just then. You know, we've got Scotland, Ghana, China, and a bulk of the UK represented on this call, and actually that's great in terms of this networking itself. But of course, it means that those are all your clients as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the online world now, isn't it? Yeah. It's opened up all these opportunities to us.
Very interesting. Very interesting. How far afield is your most furthest afield client at this stage in the game?
There's I don't know what's further away, Manchester or Luton.
Yeah, okay.
No international clients at the moment.
Okay.
You never know.
There you go. That's what networking's about. We've got some international players here. See what happens next. Wonderful. So listen, all of us who run a business have a good and a worse part of our business. So I'm really interested to hear, if I ask for you for the best thing about being a VA, and then the worst thing about being a VA, a hybrid assistant maybe as much as a VA, what would you say? What would those two answers be?
Definitely the best thing is the varied work and being of help to people. That's what I like to be. I'm like you, Libby. I'm a people pleaser. I like to help people and get that and make their life easier, which is my raison d'etre. And then the worst thing, and it's not really about being a VA, it's just being self-employed. Sometimes you get loads of work, and then sometimes it can go a bit dry. So, but that's nothing about being VA. That's just running a business, isn't it? So, but generally, I love my job, my business.
And the worst thing?
Oh, well, that's it. That's the worst thing.
Oh, I
There
see.
is the worst thing about being a VA. It's just being self-employed.
Yeah, okay. I see. Brilliant. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. So, okay. So, okay. So, listen, have we got any questions or anyone want to know a little bit more about Louise's job? Shannon, you've got your hand up. Go for it.
I do. Louise, do you find that you need to learn lots and lots of different systems? Because before I was a financial advisor, I was an auditor. So go around different businesses every couple of weeks, and everybody's system's different, all the technology. Do you find you spend quite a lot of time working out the database and how they work before you could even start doing what you actually do?
I know what you mean, but generally they're quite similar. You know, in the accounting software, I use a couple of different types of accounting software. They're quite similar. The databases, it helps because I used to train. I used to be an IT teacher. So before I started managing the law firm, I went back so many years. So I am quite adept at IT skills. So it doesn't really take me that long to learn much, but it's great because it's like every time a new client comes along and then gives me a new piece of software, then it's great because it's another skill to my bow.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. It'd be boring otherwise, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Do you feel quite integral to their businesses? Because I used to find if I was in their office for 2 weeks, I'd know who likes 3 sugars in their tea. Maybe it's in the corner, always has a cardigan because she's cold. It's funny how quickly you can adapt and be part of it.
But that's the thing. What you don't pick up when you're working remotely, because you're not at the you're not in the kitchen, are you, having a chat? So it's probably less integral. I think I feel more integral if I actually go to my clients, because you are seeing them face to face, and at the end of the day, nothing can beat face to face. So, but it's just if I am working remotely, and it is a complicated job or task, then I just have to make sure I spend enough time with the client to make sure that I get the instructions right and get them what their aim is, and just do it that way, because it is harder when you're working remotely rather than sitting face to face with them. But it's as you know, but I don't know who takes what in their tea or coffee.
Do you know? Just a final question. Sorry, hogging your time. Do you find you work conventional hours, or do you find sometimes 11 p.m. you think, oh well, if I do the work for them now, I can go and do some shopping in the morning? Do you tend to?
Yes, I mean that's the beauty of it. It depends what needs doing. A lot of my clients sort of want me there during working hours because they want to ring me, or they want to send an email over and ask me to do something, or if they want me to deal with their accountants or other service providers. Obviously I have to do that in working hours. But generally, last summer when it was really hot, I generally tried to get up super early in the morning and finish work at 2 so I could have the afternoon in the garden. But I mean, that's the joys of working for yourself, isn't it? I mean, that's the perks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but generally I do stick to working hours. But if there is a job that needs doing in an emergency, I will work the weekend. You know, that's what you have to do, isn't it?
Thank you.
Just casting back to one thing you were saying there, one of the things before I was doing all this, and you know, I used to do a lot of consulting for technical operations for venues and large-scale events, and there was one organisation, a very substantial organisation that will remain nameless, who for a period of about 4 or 5 years, we had offices within their premises because we were doing quite a big job for them, and we had a team there, and I would go in there for a day or two a week just to sort of be in charge of what was going on and get involved in it. And I got enough involved in that organisation to understand what was going on. But my word, I was always really pleased to get out of that front door, because actually you do dip in, you do get enough involved, but you don't get caught up in the company politics and the rubbish when you're external. And for me, that was one of the really great things about that job, because I thoroughly enjoyed the job. And I did like the people, but I thought I could never work in this place. I could never get that absorbed in everything that goes on here. I just need to go and work for somebody else and get my brain clear for a minute, and then I come back to it. So for me, that would be one of, and I'm sure that you must relate a little bit to that when you're on premises. Just you know, you're not part of the team, but you have the joy of being part of the team. You know.
Very much so.
Anyone got any other questions for Louise? Because now's the moment, or forever hold your peace. Okay, lovely. Right, in which case, thank you very much, Louise, and indeed, thank you very much, Libby. Really interesting couple of discussions there, and as I say, it gives us a chance just to get a little bit further under the surface of a couple of businesses and understand what's happening. And if you'd like to take part in that in future, then just let Louise know.